Բարի ձեզ կներեք ուշացնելու համար փառատոնի փակումն է, անհետաձգելի որոշ գործեր կան, որ պետք է կարգադրել։ Այսօր հայկական համայնապատկերի նախավերջին Մամլո ասուլիսն է, նախատեսված էր հանդիպում երկու ռեժիսորի հետ, սակայն մյուս մասնակցի հետ վերջին վարկանին դժբախտ բան է պատահել ընտանիքում, այդ պատճառով չի կարող ներկա գտնվել, բայց մեր ասուլիսը, ուրեմն հյուրը օվկիանոսի այն կողմից կտրել եկել է, ես հույս ունեմ գոնե ձեզնից մեկն ու մեկը դիտել է նրա ֆիլմը, որ երեկ ցուցադրվեց կինոյի տանը և հարցեր կլինեն, ես ներկայացնեմ մեր հայրենակից Ռոբերտ Դերանյանին, կինոռեժիսոր, նա առաջին անգամ չէ Հայաստանում, սակայն առաջին անգամ է մասնակցում ոսկե ծիրան կինոփառատոնին, ինքը 4 տարի առաջ Երևանում ներկայացավ Կոմիտաս վարդապետի մասին կինոնկարով, մեր այն հայրենակիցներից է, ովքեր ծնված, հասակ առած օտար երկրներում, սակայն մշտապես հետաքրքրվում են իրենց ազգի պատմությամբ, մշակույթով, ժառանգությամբ և անընդհատ մտածում են նոր ֆիլմեր նկարահանել հայկական թեմաներով, գուցե նաև Հայաստանում։ Այս ֆիլմը, որ ներկայացվել է փառատոնում, կոչվում է «Տաբու» և եթե չեմ սխալվում, նախնական վերնագիրը եղել է «Թշնամի իմ սեր».
Correct me if I'm wrong, that another title of the film was Enemy My Love?
Originally, yes.
Այդպես, սա ներկայացնում է մի պատմություն, որ կարող է առաջին հայացքից նյութը արդեն չարչարված, մաշված թվալ, այսինքն երկու հակամարտող կողմի ներկայացուցիչների սիրո պատմություն։ Մեր դեպքում հայ և թուրք։ Մենք գիտենք, որ ժամանակակից աշխարհում, թե Թուրքիայում, թե այլ երկրներում խառնամուսնությունները մեր ժողովուրդների միջև քիչ չեն։ Հիմա դարը փոխված է, մտածելակերպը փոխված է, եթե 19-րդ դարի վերջին հատուկ են բերի նման ամուսնությունները և պարտադիր մի կողմի, քրիստոնյա կողմի մահմեդականալու գնով, ապա մեր ժամանակներում դա կարծես խնդիր չէ։ Սակայն պարզվում է, որ մեր ժողովրդի և թուրքերի մեջ կան դեռ խավեր, որոնց համար սա մեծ խնդիր է, դա Ռոբերտ Դերանյանը դարձրել է իր ֆիլմի նյութը։ Մի կողմից թուրքական Ռոմեո և Ջուլիետի պատմություն, որը դատապարտված է ողբերգական վախճան ունենալու, մյուս կողմից ես այս ֆիլմը ցանկանում եմ դիտել ավելի խոր համատեքստում, ազգային հիշողության պահպանումը նորագույն սերունդների մեջ, ինչպես կարող է, որ մարդը լինել արդեն ամերիկացի հայկական արմատներով, սակայն այդքան կարևորել իր ազգային ժառանգության մասը և հատկապես անհանդուրժողականության պահը։ Գիտեք, ֆիլմի վերջում մարդ ասում է, որ ավելի լավ է այս զույգը լինի երջանիկ, քան թե ամեն մեկը ամուսնանա իր հայրենակցի հետ և չլինի երջանիկ։ Մյուս կողմից մենք գիտենք բազմաթիվ երջանիկ ամուսնության դեպքեր հայերի և թուրքերի միջև։ Ես երեկ էլ Ռոբերտին ասացի, որ մենք Պոլսում մի շատ լավ բանաստեղծում ենք, Զարեղ խրախունի ունեինք բացավ։ Նա իր որդուն հատուկ Ստամբուլից ուղարկեց Ամերիկայում ապրելու, որպեսզի թուրքի հետ չամուսնանա, բայց նա Լոս Անջելեսում հանդիպեց մի թրքուհու և ամուսնացավ։ Մի խոսքով խնդիր, որպես այդպիսին գլոբալ առումով գուցե չկա, բայց մասնավոր առումով կա, Եվ այս թեմաներով գրքեր, գրական գործեր կամ արտույտների ագարակը ֆիլմում, եթե հիշում եք, կա թուրք տղամարդու եւ հայ կնոջ միջեւ, բայց ինչ-որ չեմ հիշում, որ այս հակառակը լինի, հայ տղամարդու եւ թուրք աղջկա միջեւ սիրո պատմություն։ Ինչքանով է դա արդարացված այս թեման այսօր կինոյի լեզվով ներկայացնել, մենք խնդրենք, որ ռեժիսորը ինքը պատմի։ Please, Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Artsby. That was a very good description. I actually might comment on one of the last points of the issue of the Armenian guy and a Turkish girl versus the opposite. And believe me, I consciously made that decision. And the reason for that, of course, is, as many of us know the history of Armenian-Turkish relations, especially in the days of the Ottoman Empire. To be a Christian in those days, we're talking hundreds of years ago, it was a gavor status, infidel.
Շատ կներեք, թարգմանության կարիք կա, ես ու ժամանակի համար եմ ասում, թե բոլորը հասկանում են անգլերեն։ Կա կարիք։ Չկա։ Սարաջան հանգստաց։
Everything good?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything.
So the point is that in fact, I might even say there's an ancient legend that some of you may know. It's called Sarıgelin. And Sarıgelin, of which the soundtrack in the movie was based on, the song, was a legend basically of an Armenian maiden, an Armenian girl. I think she had blonde hair, supposedly in the story. Falls in love with a Turkish young man and vice versa, but their love can never be. They both know this, so it's a tragic love story, and it's like Romeo and Juliet. But again, the reason I chose the guy to be Armenian versus Turkish is because I wanted to break that sort of historical tradition, which really was a tradition very demeaning to Armenians, I think. In many ways, this film seeks to challenge those traditions, as Artsby was saying. These are in the old days. Such a thing would be difficult to even kind of imagine, although it did happen. Nowadays, when religions are starting to break down a bit in favor of secularism, how does these things can happen, and when they happen, how does it turn out? In this movie, and I don't want to give it away, it's just that things become very messy, and I'll leave it at that.
Մարիետան մտավ, տեսնենք եթե նա դիտել է ֆիլմը, որտեղ ինչպես հասկացա, ոչ ոք չի դիտել ֆիլմը։ Մարիետա Մակարյան, բարև ձեզ։ Ես ողջունում եմ ձեզ, դուք դիտել եք այս ֆիլմը Տաբու։ Շատ դա, որովհետև մենք ակնկալում ենք ձեր հարցերը։
She has seen the film. Oh, that's why I'm expecting, because the others haven't.
I see, okay.
Եթե կան հարցեր, անկախ նրանց ֆիլմը դիտել եք, թե ոչ։
Can I say something else? Of course. Should I push this button? Yeah. Another huge reason, actually, for making this film, and it's a little bit of a backstory, but so here I am sitting in Florida, by the beach in 2014 with some friends, and this is before we knew about movies like The Promise or any of these movies. That we had no idea if there was going to be a movie about the Armenian genocide in 2015, and we said, you know what, we're going to make a movie about the Armenian genocide for 2015. Now, it was a few years later, and thank God there were other movies that came out, but I will tell you, this movie, it's not just a love story. Really, in many ways, it's and my co-producer might differ with me on this, but it's, for me, this was a way to tell the story of the Armenian genocide in a modern, sort of, hopefully fresh way. Meaning that, you know, you have the truth and you never want to sacrifice the truth, but what is true for one person, to make that true for somebody else. Like, for we Armenians, we know the genocide happened, but for Turkish people that for 100 years have heard that, you know, all the stories, civil war, blah, 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 I think lots of them truly believe there was not a genocide. So how do you get through to them? I mean, if you just tell them, you better believe in the genocide. Well, they're like, really? Why should I do that? So the point is how do you let somebody discover the truth for themselves? And that's tricky, right? That's always been throughout human history, that's been very tough, sometimes almost impossible. But this was a goal of mine, was to tell the Armenian genocide, not just for Turks and Armenians, but for Americans, because that's where I'm coming from. A lot of Americans, they have no idea about the Armenian genocide. They don't even know what it is. So it's like, you can't just give them history. You have to try and give them something like a love story to try and, you know. So this was my motivation. Really, I believe this is a story about genocide. And without getting into details, to touch on that, we used a subplot in the form of a documentary film that runs through it. Lots of it is Peter Balakian, the Pulitzer Prize winner. He's a noted poet and everything, and he's embedded in the film. There's a lot more I could say, but I'll keep it.
Տարեկացնեմ, որ ֆիլմի գլխավոր դերակատարները ոչ թուրք են, ոչ հայ. Yeah, maybe in English. I was telling that the main actors are neither Turk nor Armenian.
Exactly.
Yeah, two very handsome, charming young men, and young man and woman. And that was great that you didn't follow some stereotype of that an Armenian should be with a big nose and with, I don't know, very hairy. But we see a quite handsome guy, and he might be Armenian. Why not? I'm very interested, what was the feeling of those non-Armenian and non-Turkish actors presenting about such delicate matter? Were they aware about the historical truth? Were they also feel as a part of the story?
That's a great question, and I think, I can almost quote the girl, the female actress that played the Turkish girl. She's not Turkish at all. She's a typical girl that grew up at the beach in Florida, and she said, I had no idea about the Armenian genocide, and she goes, this was important for her. She says, that I learned about this it meant something to her. I would say that with the exception of one actress that we had in there, which I'll mention in a second, it's very interesting, her background, but with the exception of one actress in the film, who had a minor role actually, none of them knew about the Armenian genocide. And this is quite typical of American people, educated people. This isn't like, people that never read. These are educated people. You'd be amazed. They're like, well, I never knew about that. They don't even know that there was a problem. Quite honestly, they don't even know where Turkey or Armenia is half the time. But the point is that across the board, and the two, in fact, with respect to the actors, so I should mention, this film is set in Florida. And in Florida, surfing, the beach, this is what it's about. And so the guy, he's the young Armenian man that falls in love with a Turkish girl. He's from Los Angeles. He's a first-generation Armenian American. He's a surfer. And he's a scientist, too. He's going to graduate school in physics. He's just trying to live the modern life, have a good time. And never in his wild imagination could he believe that he would meet a Turkish girl, and until he's torn by this. It's really a terrible. So his brother, whose name is his brother, who's from LA as well, comes to visit. His brother is Armenian American, but much tougher. He's a tough guy.
From Armenian force, yeah?
Yeah, like almost like Armenian gangs, Armenian force. In Los Angeles, we have a variety of Armenians, you know, and some Armenians are quite tough, you know. And this guy, when he finds out that his brother is dating a Turkish girl, well, I won't, you'll have to watch the movie to find out what happens, but he doesn't like it. He does not like it one bit. And you know, you'll have to watch the film to see how that develops. But the point is that to your original question, these guys aren't Armenian. I think they could pass for Armenians. I mean, they're both dark haired, kind of, you know, and it's amazing. I mean, I think they did a good job, and especially for guys that knew nothing really about the Armenian culture, as far as I know. One guy was Ukrainian, the Armenian guy that took it, but. As you mentioned, they're not hairy, they have big noses, you know, you know, and really quite handsome guys, you know, and so it was interesting. And I'll tell you what, by the end of the movie, there's one thing I will mention. We shot this entire film, maybe I shouldn't say it, but I will, in 8 days. And for those of you who know, that's almost impossible. But the reason we were able to do it is because we were working, one day we worked 20 hours straight. But everybody, it was the best film shoot ever. I mean, so much good feelings. And I think that's because people knew they were making a subject that was important.
Մենք պայմանավորվեցինք, որ
It's a lot.
չենք թարգմանելու, որից հետո դուք եկաք, չէ, որից հետո դուք եկաք, ձեր հարցերը իհարկե կպատասխանենք։ Այո, լավ Զարուհի, քանի որ մենք ունես կողքից, այո։ What was I going to ask?
My apologies, by the way, for my Armenian. Mikic says, it is a goal of mine to learn and speak Armenian well at some point. I didn't Mikic very. Hiçbir says, you know, Barem says, yes.
But actually, in the film, there are two Armenians, and they play Turks. And those Armenians are here. One is Robert Deranian, and the other is his wife, Janice Caprilia.
Oh, she made it. There you go.
She's here.
And can I tell a sort of a funny story about that? Yes. So that's we're not actors per se. There was no intention of that. But what happened was, after I did the first cut of the film, I realized we needed to add in Turkish parents. We needed to put that in. So I told my wife Janice, I said, Janice, please just play this role of the Turkish mother. I'm going to play the Turkish father. Don't worry, we're going to get other actors. Nobody will ever see it. and she was honestly, because you have to understand, especially Armenian Americans, as all Armenians do, we feel strongly about, and Janice feels very strongly about it, more than me maybe perhaps, but anyway, we went ahead and we filmed this, and it was, I have to say it was fun, and from what people have told us, at least American and some Armenians, they go, you guys are pretty convincing.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. It was funny how it happened.
Խնդրեմ հարց։
Ոնց մտավղացավ այս թեմային անդրադառնալ, որտեղ իրոք դա գույերս թեմա, արդյոք ինչ-որ մեկը պատմել է, ինչ-որ հուշեր է, ինչ-որ ժամանակ խմորվել է ձեզ մոտ ու փորձեցիք
How this topic came out in you? Somebody told you about it? You had some process of developing this in your mind?
That's a good question. I think I was at its core, I was looking to tell the story of the genocide from a fresh perspective. Let me give an example. And I hope this example works. It's in the United States, we have, police officers like you guys have them. Imagine you're driving down the road and a police officer stops you and says, you broke the law, now sign this ticket. And you say to the police officer, well, okay, how much is the ticket going to cost? And the police officer says, I don't know. Maybe it's going to be 500, maybe it's going to be 500 dram, maybe it's going to be 1 billion dram. Please sign the ticket. So I tend to think that in many ways that's how Turkish people kind of feel right now. I mean, it's much more complex. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but the point of the matter is that once the Turks do recognize the genocide, if they ever do, one can definitely expect lots of repercussions. Now, what I mean to say in that is that by no means encapsulates the complexity of the issue. But what it does say is that this is a messy issue. In other words, for we Armenians, and for people that can honestly see things clearly, it's very obvious there was a genocide. But imagine if the role was reversed somehow in some crazy way, and people said that your grandfathers and great-grandfathers were mass murderers and did all these things. It's hard to take as a human being. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, it's just you don't want to hear that. And in fact, I might mention a noted genocide scholar, Dr. Taner Akçam, who's Turkish, and he wrote a book, I believe it was called Rescuing the Turkish Soul. So he believes, like many Turks today, certainly not the majority, I don't think, but like some Turks believe, it's imperative that they recognize, that they get a hold of that. They believe it, truly believe it, because that's the only way that their soul is going to be redeemed, is going to be recognized.
From where? Please ask my question.
Okay, from where?
Any special story?
No, so the story came completely in from me, 100%. Yes, completely. I mean, it's funny because I just thought the story up, but I've heard here and there was somebody years ago at the church I went to in California, in San Diego, Armenian church. There was this Armenian guy who had married a Turkish girl, but all I knew was they got married and they got divorced. So there was this, it's possible that it could happen, but I never, the idea of it, again, the motivation for it was to try and find a way to tell the story from both sides while not denying the truth of the Armenian genocide.
Where it was? In LA?
Oh, in San Diego.
San Diego.
San Diego, yeah, but I think his wife was in Turkey, and they got divorced, but I didn't know the details. I'll mention one other thing which is real interesting. Okay. Now, there's one little coincidence that's kind of related to your question, but it's not direct. It turns out, completely by coincidence, the casting agent gave me this actress, who I needed to play for the Armenian mother of the story. And it's a very minor role. This Armenian family lived in LA. Anyway, it turns out, this is amazing to me, this woman is half Azeri, half Armenian. And look, you say it, then I'll just mention something else. It's crazy. This was crazy.
She's not actress.
No, she's actress actually. She plays the Armenian mother in the story when they go to LA.
What's her name?
What is her name now? Geez, I have to. She's from Azerbaijan, from Baku. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So here's the crazy thing about this. She is the only one that has made it out. Her family to this day lives in Baku, hidden. In other words, if I remember correctly, the father is Azeri, the mother is Armenian, and they have children. And they have to completely hide their identity. They're trying to get them out. They've been trying for years, apparently. This is really, so in a way, this actress is kind of like the story. I mean, it's Azeri and Armenian versus Turkish and Armenian, but again, that came completely, it was coincidental. It was not something, or maybe spiritual, I don't know, but came completely out of the blue, you know.
Is that her name in the subtitles?
She's in the credits, yeah. I don't know why I'm forgetting her name, but it was a minor. I'll forget it.
She also acted in other American films?
Not much. It was like a first chance for her, and it was the casting agent didn't even know. It was.
Մտահոգություն չունեցեք, որ նույնին անդրադառնալով հանկարծ կարող այնպեսի զուգահեռներ չտանի, որ իրականությանը համահուն չլինի։ Եվ ինչ աղմուկ է, եթե ցուցադրվել է այս ֆիլմը, ինչ որտեղ ինչ արձագանք է եղել։
What are the responses of the film? And you didn't have any concern that it should be equal what the reality is?
Yeah. Good question. I can tell you this. So far, we have done some test screenings in California. We did one in California, near Fresno, California. That one had a mixed audience of Armenians, non-Armenians. We also had a screening in Florida, which had almost all non-Armenians. There was one Armenian family there, just by coincidence. And I will tell you, our concern, we had a very real concern about this movie all the way through. Not how the Americans were going to relate to it, because we thought they'll like it just because it's love and tragic and all this. The Armenians, we were wondering how the Armenians were going to perceive this. Is this something they can take? And I will tell you, so far, after seeing the movie, at least in California and in Florida, the Armenians they liked it. Which was gratifying because, look, we knew that we were pushing the edge a little bit here. I thought anyway. But so far, so good. Now, I'm curious how people here in Hayastan feel about it.
So you have not any concern that what you presented might not be appropriate what is in real life? No?
Should I answer that? Yeah. So I'll give you a personal story about this. One of the first people to see this movie was my mom, okay? And I remember distinctly her saying, "But this could never happen." Mm-hmm. And right, she said it that way. And I said, "What do you mean it couldn't happen? I mean, two people can fall in love, right? She says, "No, but it could never be. Like it could never be a happy ending." And I'm not gonna say what the ending's about because I don't want to give away the end. Can it be a happy ending? And let me mention this. There's a larger theme here. Okay, and this is there's a quote at the end, and I don't want to really speak directly in context to it, but it's basically asking the question, will man survive? Will humanity survive? If we keep on like this, and I'm talking globally now, right? If human beings continue to be the way they are, I give us another 100 years at best. I'm amazed we have not extinguished ourselves at this point. And this simply because, and depending on your religious views or scientific views, whatever you want to call it, we human beings Turks, Armenians, Americans, Mexicans, Chinese, we better figure this out. Because if we don't, I don't see how we're going to survive. Sorry, a bit passionate there, but it's.
Ինչպես հասկացա, մեծ մասը չի դիտել ֆիլմը, դիտեք եւ կարծում եմ շատ ավելի ակտիվ քննարկում կլիներ։ Եկեք արդեն ամփոփենք եւ շնորհակալություն հայտնենք Ռոբերտին իր մասնակցության եւ ֆիլմի համար. Thanks a lot, Robert, for your participation and for the film.
Thank you.
And we wish you new films also in Armenia. You can come and shoot your films. Love, şunlara kalsın.
Thank you. Şunlara kalsın.